Many parents don't consider the amount of admin and management that goes into educating their children. Often they only think about the activities in the classroom and the sports field and seldom give thought to all the processes in the background, such as managing the school budget, which have happened to allow learning to take place. To help understand what goes into the back end of a school's smooth operation, here's Willem Kitshoff, who is the CEO of the D6 Group, South Africa's leading online school management platform.
Schools are essentially businesses that need to provide a great service to the learner and to the parents. And parents are a critical element within the school. And if the parents do not understand the sensitivities and complexities of the school, they will not necessarily support the school in the correct way. We need to be more conscious of the complexities of a school, so that from a parent perspective, we understand the complexities that the schools are sitting with, so that we can provide the right support and care. Because I think a lot of general public might be oblivious towards the complexities of managing a school.
Now, can you explain in simple terms how schools are actually hugely complex businesses?
Well, if we look at a school as an organization, it's got an incredibly complex product that it needs to offer the learners, which is the CAPS curriculum in most cases. The CAPS curriculum consists of within the school environment in general. It's 12 grades. Each grade is about 8 to 10 subjects. Each subject has about 8 to 10 learning outcomes, and each of these learning outcomes have assessment level tasks that needs to be completed. Now, the multiplication of all of that is the actual product that needs to be delivered. So it's a very complex product that needs to be offered, but it's also the service that needs to be offered to parents. And you've got probably the most complex customer, as we all can understand, which is the parent and their child. And these organizations have to operate effectively, and we sometimes forget about the complexities of managing this. It's similar to a business. If we think about a business, the first thing we normally ask is, how well is that business being run and managed? But my experience is that sometimes within the school's environment, we tend to forget about that, and we primarily focus on what is happening in the classroom, which in effect is the most important thing. But if the managerial aspects of the business is not run and managed properly, then it will have a negative effect on the learning.
Now, speaking of that, do South African schools have people with the right business management expertise? What's your analysis?
Well, in the school environment, our experience is that in most cases, the school managing body is sometimes and mostly people that came from the education space itself and not necessarily from business. And that's why the support to management, the training to management, and allowing management to have access to proper management systems is vital, because we can't expect that managerial staff of schools to run a school and not have access to real-time data to make decisions, or not have access to sound management platforms in order to provide them with the ability to be efficient. Irrespective of how well you are trained or the experience level that you have, if you try to run a company without the backing of proper management platforms, it's almost an impossible task.
Now, Willem, let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has added to schools a huge management burden.
Well, I believe what COVID highlighted for us is rather the importance of ensuring that we are proactive in the implementation of cloud-based management platforms in schools, so that school staff members have access to the data and can manage the school remotely if needed. I do not believe that the COVID pandemic will have a significant disruptive effect in terms of how schools are being managed or how schools run from a day-to-day operational perspective. I do believe that schools will go back to, let's call it, the normal way of doing things as soon as we are out of the level 1 and as soon as COVID has been lifted. But it is important, what has been highlighted rather, is those schools that did not have these management platforms in place found themselves in a bit of a predicament that they could not be on campus, which meant that they could not have access to their school information and their managerial environment, which meant that the school couldn't really run. Other schools who were proactive in the implementation of these type of managerial platforms could almost operate as normal, just remotely, with little to no disruption, apart from the fact that the learners obviously have to learn from home.
So what sort of support can schools that are struggling to get to enable themselves a smooth operation so that learners get the best education?
Well, I suppose it's a conscious decision from the school managing body to have a bit of an internal assessment in terms of how well do they operate and do they have the best managerial platforms available that they can get. Because it's what we find is we always refer to the unknown unknowns. Within the school's environment, it does seem that schools operate, and not generalizing across all, but a lot of schools operate the same way as they've been operating for the past 40 years. And they do not necessarily push themselves to innovate from a managerial perspective because they don't want to tamper with something that works and it's perceived works. It's not necessarily, they don't go out of that comfort zone. And that's why we see that schools are stuck in legacy in a lot of the cases, and management of schools. And it primarily resides with either the governing body or the directorate and the principal to drive the change and to say, I want to ensure that my school operates as effectively as possible. So it's a top-down application or implementation that the SMTs of schools need to make.
Well, that was Willem Kitshoff, CEO of the D6 Group, South Africa's leading online school management platform, which is used by more than 2,500 schools around the country. He was on the line there speaking to Lulu Kabu. It's time now for our economic update with Nosihle.